Hi, I'm Sharon, and I'm 32 years old. I recently left a very unhealthy relationship, and the way everything unfolded is quite a story, one that I find humorously ironic in retrospect. I'd like to share it with you, but first, a bit about my background. I was born into a family with significant wealth, a fact I've always been thankful for because it meant I never faced financial struggles growing up. My parents, wise as they were, advised me to be discreet about our wealth to avoid being exploited by those who might want to take advantage of us. Heeding their advice, I lived modestly, with only the possessions I owned hinting at my family's financial status. When it came time for college, I chose a university far from home, eager to see more of the world and live independently. To truly immerse myself in this experience, I lived on a budget, much like my peers, which introduced me to the joys of simple brands and thrift shopping. Despite having access to a substantial trust fund after graduation, I felt compelled to work and lead a purposeful life rather than living off my inheritance. A year post-graduation, I met Benjamin, my now ex-husband, through a dating app. Our initial dates were filled with charm and mutual gift-giving, and after 3 years, Benjamin suggested I meet his mother, Margaret. Although I won't go into the details of our first meeting, the conversation leading up to it was significant. Benjamin thought it was time for me to meet his mom, and while I was open to it, I explained that meeting my parents might take a while due to distance and busy schedules. We planned to coordinate a meeting with his mother, which marked the beginning of an unexpected journey in our relationship. However, Benjamin suggested we might meet his mom as soon as this weekend. I was taken aback by the haste, but understood his eagerness, given how much he revered his mom and wanted her to meet someone significant to him, like me. My surprise was also mixed with a bit of apprehension when Benjamin mentioned he needed to preface our meeting with a warning. He candidly shared that his family was quite affluent, something I had pieced together from the lavish gifts he'd given me. But the crux of his warning was about his mother's tendency to judge people based on their social status. He didn't want me to be blindsided or upset by any potentially judgmental remarks she might make. Benjamin reassured me that whatever his mom might say, it wouldn't change how he felt about me. Despite this heads up, I couldn't help feeling a bit more nervous about our upcoming meeting, though I remained hopeful. Unfortunately, Benjamin's pre-warning didn't quite prepare me for the experience with Margaret. Our interactions were fraught with tension from the start. Margaret exemplified the stereotypical elitist attitude, making it clear she disapproved of me. The first time we met, she even scoffed at my choice of clothing from a regular store like Zara, setting the tone for our relationship. Margaret often hosted dinner parties, and Benjamin, compelled to attend, would plead with me to join him. It was under these circumstances that I had to deal with her frequently. If I had my way, I would avoid Margaret altogether, as she persistently insinuated that my interest in Benjamin was financially motivated. Despite my attempts to clarify that I did not need Benjamin's money, coming from a wealthier background myself, Margaret never gave me the chance to explain. She would dismiss my words, derogatorily calling me a peasant, which was not only hurtful to me, but disrespectful to anyone struggling financially. Benjamin's reluctance to confront his mother about her behavior only compounded the issue, making me feel even more isolated and undervalued in our relationship. Feeling utterly alone in handling Margaret's antagonism was difficult enough, but her birthday event was the final straw. She had us join a large family gathering, where she thought it amusing to target me for ridicule in front of everyone. That night, she mocked everything about me, my dress sense, speech, even the way I moved. It reached a point where I became the evening's joke, and even Benjamin kept his distance, mingling with others instead of supporting me. After we returned home, overwhelmed and hurt, I confronted Benjamin. I couldn't understand how he could let me endure such cruelty. He seemed oblivious to his mother's incessant jibes at my expense, which had been the night's entertainment at my cost. I pointed out how he had conspicuously avoided me, leaving me isolated when I most needed him. Benjamin claimed it wasn't intentional, that he was merely caught up with guests whenever I approached, but it was little consolation. The argument escalated as I accused him of never defending me against his mother's harshness. He argued that challenging his mother could have severe consequences for him. But I countered, highlighting his independence and ability to withstand any fallout. Amidst our heated exchange, Benjamin admitted his failures, apologizing for both the evening's events and his previous insensitivity. He acknowledged my right to be upset and promised to address the issue with his mother, admitting he had been cowardly in handling the situation. This acknowledgement from Benjamin was a turning point. It was a relief to hear him validate my feelings and commit to standing up for me. True to his word, he spoke to Margaret the following day, initiating a long overdue change. It was a crucial step toward mending the rift her behavior had caused between us. And it marked a moment of growth for Benjamin, showing his willingness to confront difficult situations for the sake of our relationship. Benjamin had never before confronted his mother about her treatment of me, so when he finally did, Margaret was taken aback. She had grown accustomed to his silence. To Benjamin's surprise, Margaret apologized to him and promised to change her behavior towards me. This development made me look forward to the next dinner party, hopeful for a warmer welcome. However, my optimism was short-lived when Margaret informed Benjamin there wouldn't be enough food for me to attend, an excuse I saw right through as her way of excluding me without having to be overtly hostile, now that her overt means of entertainment at my expense were no longer an option. Despite my attempts to discuss this with Benjamin, he chose to believe his mother's excuse was genuine, which led him to attend alone. This pattern of exclusion continued, with Margaret finding new reasons to prevent me from joining these gatherings. Initially, this hurt me, but I soon found solace in the distance it created between Margaret and me. This distance reduced the humiliations I had to endure and subsequently, the conflicts between Benjamin and me, as there was no longer a need for him to defend me in my absence. Over time, I began to appreciate the peace and happiness that came with fewer interactions with Margaret. This new dynamic significantly reduced the stress in our relationship, making me more accepting of the situation, especially since it seemed to benefit our relationship overall. After 4 years of dating and as both our careers flourished, Benjamin proposed. Despite the challenges we'd faced, I was thrilled. I believe in our resilience and capacity to overcome obstacles together. Everyone in our circle was delighted about our engagement, except for Margaret. Her disdain was palpable when she questioned Benjamin's decision to marry me, implying I was beneath him. Benjamin, steadfast in his decision, defended our love, emphasizing the non-materialistic value I brought to his life, like happiness and comfort, which he argued couldn't be measured in monetary terms. Despite Margaret's harsh critique, accusing me of planning to live off Benjamin, he continued to stand by me, asking for his mother's respect towards our relationship and acknowledging my feelings and contributions to his life. This insistence on respect marked a pivotal moment in our relationship, showing Benjamin's commitment to us and highlighting the growth in our ability to navigate challenges together, including dealing with Margaret's reluctance to accept me. From the beginning, I made it clear to Margaret that my love for Benjamin was genuine and not influenced by his wealth. Despite this, Margaret challenged my intentions, suggesting I prove my disinterest in Benjamin's finances by signing a prenuptial agreement. Benjamin refused, stating it implied a lack of trust in me and our relationship. Yet Margaret threatened to disinherit him unless he complied. Faced with this ultimatum, we had 5 days to decide, during which I reassured Benjamin of my willingness to sign the agreement, emphasizing that my commitment was to him, not his wealth. When we arrived at Margaret's to sign the prenup, Benjamin wore a look of remorse, while Margaret appeared triumphantly confident, believing she had undermined our relationship. However, signing the document was my way of showing her that financial matters held no weight over my love for Benjamin. With the prenup behind us, we accelerated our wedding plans to prevent Margaret from further attempts to sabotage our happiness. We organized the wedding in 5 months, mindful of Margaret's presence and ensuring security was tight to avoid any potential disruptions. Our wedding day was magical, filled with emotion and joy as we exchanged vows. The celebration was vibrant, surrounded by loved ones. However, Margaret couldn't resist, the spotlight shifting away from her and during her toast. She attempted to belittle me and forecast the demise of our marriage, claiming Benjamin would eventually seek a partner who added more value to his stature. Her words stirred unease among the guests, and to prevent any further embarrassment, I quietly suggested to Benjamin that we might need to involve security. This wasn't about retaliating against Margaret, but about protecting the sanctity and joy of our special day. After the wedding incident, where Margaret's disruptive behavior led to her being escorted out by security, I hoped I could move past her harsh words and enjoy my new life with Benjamin. Unfortunately, her remarks lingered with me, casting a shadow over our marriage. To address the tension, Benjamin and I visited Margaret the day after our wedding to discuss her actions. Despite our intentions for a peaceful conversation, Margaret was defensive, accusing me of manipulating Benjamin. She refused to acknowledge her hurtful behavior, instead doubling down on her accusations against me. During this exchange, I finally stood up for myself, challenging Margaret's baseless claims. However, this led to Benjamin becoming upset with me for what he perceived as disrespect towards his mother. Despite years of enduring her disparaging remarks, my self-defense seemed to cross a line for him. I apologized to Benjamin, but this set a precedent for how we dealt with future confrontations with Margaret. Realizing the empowerment that came from asserting myself, I no longer held back when Margaret attempted to belittle me. This shift often resulted in tense moments, with both Margaret and Benjamin criticizing me for causing discomfort. I argued that if Margaret wanted to avoid public embarrassment, she should refrain from attempting to humiliate me. Benjamin was particularly displeased with my newfound assertiveness, frequently urging me to back down. Yet I saw no reason to yield as long as Margaret continued her behavior. This standoff between my self-respect and Margaret's provocations became a recurring theme in our marriage, highlighting a significant challenge we would need to navigate together. I noticed a shift in Benjamin's behavior over time. He started pulling away, his once warm and affectionate nature cooling significantly. This change seemed sudden, and I couldn't tie it to my standing up for myself since Benjamin appeared to agree with me in private discussions. Then, one day, coming home early from work, I found Margaret's car in our driveway, bracing myself for another unpleasant encounter. However, what I walked into was far from what I expected. I overheard a conversation between Margaret and Benjamin that stopped me in my tracks. Margaret was urging Benjamin to end our marriage, painting me as disrespectful and manipulative. She insinuated that I had wedged myself between them and that Benjamin, were he not married to me, would naturally side with her. Margaret painted a picture of me as a gold digger, suggesting that my alleged entitlement stemmed from a desire for Benjamin's wealth, although Benjamin admitted to lavishing me with gifts without much reciprocation. Hearing their words, I was taken aback. Was Benjamin swayed by such baseless claims? I made my presence known by loudly closing the door, their conversation halting abruptly. The shock of realizing Benjamin's susceptibility to his mother's manipulative narrative was overwhelming. Yet, instead of confronting them directly, I chose a different approach, letting my actions in the coming days speak for themselves. Walking past Benjamin and Margaret to the bedroom, I caught another remark from Margaret about my supposed disrespect. Benjamin's sigh was the only response. Inside, I braced for an emotional breakdown but found myself overwhelmed by fatigue instead. The relentless attempts by Margaret to push me out and Benjamin's diminishing support had drained me. Surprisingly, part of me felt relieved at the prospect of the marriage ending, yet I was determined not to exit silently. The following day, I gathered my financial documents, planning to reveal them to Benjamin and Margaret post-divorce signing, aiming to prove my financial independence and that their assumptions about my motives were wrong. When Benjamin presented the divorce papers later that week, their frustration was evident at my lack of reaction, but I proceeded to sign. After signing, I stripped them of any satisfaction they hoped to derive from this situation. However, Margaret's smugness quickly resurfaced, especially when their lawyer promptly left with the signed documents. Margaret taunted me, insinuating I would miss the financial benefits of being Benjamin's wife. To her surprise, I expressed happiness about being free from their toxicity. Margaret's insult, calling me a snob, and Benjamin's defense, accusing me of acting out because they had seen through me, only highlighted their misunderstanding. They seemed oblivious to the fact that I had never been after Benjamin's money. Benjamin's reminder of his gifts to me over the past months, intended as evidence of my supposed greed, missed the point entirely. I had sought love and partnership, not wealth. Amidst their complaints about me not reciprocating Benjamin's gestures with even minor gifts, I had been harboring a grand surprise. I planned to buy Benjamin his dream car, fully customized to his liking. Such a gift required time, a detail they dismissed as fantasy. Skeptically, Margaret accused me of not having the means, prompting me to prove her wrong with my bank statements. The revelation that I was financially capable left them stunned, challenging their preconceived notions about me. Despite my repeated efforts to convey that money was never my interest, my words fell on deaf ears, with Margaret labeling me as inferior and Benjamin considering me disrespectful. In the heat of their realization, both attempted to re-engage me in conversation, hurling insults in disbelief of my independence. Benjamin was visibly angered and feeling betrayed, and Margaret, unexpectedly softening, pleaded for reconciliation, admitting her mistake and asking for forgiveness. However, the damage was beyond repair. I demanded they remove themselves from my life, a sentiment I underscored by having friends retrieve my belongings from Benjamin's house, severing all ties with them. They even attempted to contest the divorce, falsely claiming I had taken from them, but the airtight prenup Margaret insisted on signing protected me from any financial claims they might have had. Now, I'm on a path to normalcy, gradually healing from the wounds inflicted by Margaret and Benjamin's actions. It's a slow journey to recovery, but I'm confident that in time, I'll move past the turmoil and find peace. Thank you for being here to listen to my story.